Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things nerdy more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Stephanie Phillips, 2021's Harley Quinn writer for pretty much all of DC Comics, writer of Sensational Wonder Woman, Nuclear Family over at Aftershock, and Tarna over at Heavy Metal. I got it right. I got the whole name right.
It's awesome.
How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk Harley.
Yeah, you kind of took the whole bag. Honestly, you took the whole bat for Harley this year.
Yeah,
You're writing all of it. And as we record, Future State Harley Quinn 1 came out on Tuesday, which I had to keep it into myself because I got to read a review copy how good it was. So I'm very, very excited to see what you do.
Well, thank you.
But before we get into Harley, I have a couple other questions about some things you worked on, but we do have to open with a pretty hard-hitting question.
Okay.
What's your favorite sandwich?
So I'm from Tampa, and I'm used to pub subs or Publix subs, and they have a chicken tender sub. And actually, for anyone who's in Florida and doesn't know, if you Google "are chicken tender subs from Publix on sale?" there's an entire website devoted every week to whether or not the pub sub chicken tender meals are on sale. And even being in Buffalo, New York now, I still like to just every once in a while see what I'm missing out with my chicken tender pub subs.
So what is on it? Many of my friends live in Florida because they all work for the Mouse, but
nice.
What is on the pub sub? The pub sub.
So anything you want. They make really good chicken tenders, and they will dice up the chicken tenders, and then I get them with honey mustard and lettuce and cheese, and they'll heat it up, and it's just amazing.
That does sound good. So Jake, who is not on this interview, my brother, who's co-host of the show, wanted me to ask how he can get you to write more Wildcat.
Oh, don't worry. That is on my mind. Actually, I was talking with Riley, the series artist for Harley Quinn, the other day, and both of us just love Wildcat. That's how we got introduced to each other. That was my first work at DC and my first work with Riley. That I think, led to the collaboration that we now have on Harley Quinn. And Ted Grant being my intro into DC Comics could not be more perfect. And I think the way that editors have told me is that it kind of went down like they were looking for somebody to write a short Ted Grant, and another person happened to know that out there in the stratosphere was just this comic book writer who happened to also do boxing and Muay Thai. And that's kind of how that one came to be. They gave me a shot, and I'm really thankful for that. And Ted Grant's story kind of came to be.
So you do Muay Thai and all that?
I did, yes. I was a Muay Thai. I fought for a long time, and then when I stepped out of the ring, I became a coach and instructor at a gym in Florida for quite a few years before I moved to New York. And since coming to New York, I'll hit pads or a heavy bag or something, but I definitely don't train to be in the ring anymore.
I did not know that. That's such an interesting way to come at these things, and especially because it's Wildcat. Oh, do you think that influenced your writing of the character at all?
I do, and I think one of the things I wanted to show was an aging Ted Grant, somebody who's really lost that kind of spark in the ring. He can still be an amazing fighter, but there's always somebody younger and faster, and that's something that it happens. You've got like a shelf life on a fighter, and I'm writing a book right now that hasn't been announced that's all about women participating in Muay Thai and martial arts. And one of the characters kind of makes a comment that with that shelf life, it's like, you shouldn't be having double knee surgery before the age of 30. But a lot of friends or people I trained with have had knee surgeries, hip surgeries, like all down my shin. You can actually feel these little bubble pockets that are tiny fractures in my shin from conditioning the shin to kind of act like a shield. So when people kick me, I'm using the shin to block a kick or from just kicking things myself. So it's a very brutal sport, and getting to kind of show somebody who's been through that and kind of now we're at the end of that road is, I think, one of my favorite places to tell a story. And then the fact that it was Ted Grant was just really perfect for me.
Holy moly. That's awesome. That's such a way to come at these, the three that we're talking about, Ted, Wonder Woman, and Harley Quinn. They're all such visceral fighters and things like that. So coming at it with that background is so interesting. So now I'll have to read these in a much different way.
I really like combat sports. And that's actually something that I try to do is each character I write, especially if they're, a superhero or in some kind of combat or fighting position, how they fight is really indicative of who they are as a character. And with Harley, that's a pretty obvious, clear one, which is anything at her disposal is going to become a weapon at any time. And we really play that up in specifically the Harley ongoing with Riley. There have been times where we're just like, oh, this really, really random object that we both are thinking of, how can she weaponize this? Like it's very fun, it's very full, but then other people like, obviously Ted are going to be so much more structured, or even Wonder Woman is a trained warrior. So I always think that element of choreographing for these characters is really unique and interesting.
Yeah, and I do want to ask, I don't want to spoil anything for Sensational Wonder Woman, but that deals with, the first issue was awesome. It's a digital short. It's 99 cents. If you have no excuse not to buy it. So just a heads up to listeners. It's very good. But I don't want to spoil any major story elements, but it does deal with an archaic kind of misogynistic view of women in this quote unquote classic housewife role. What made you want to explore those themes using Wonder Woman?
I thought it was such an interesting juxtaposition between what we're used to seeing with Wonder Woman and, having her kind of stuck in this alternate reality or whatever it is that she's dealing with as this figure, and just automatically knowing like something is not right here. And I think it's kind of funny for her to play with too. And, to talk about too with Hawk Girl, who makes an appearance. So when Hawk Girl's like, where were you? What was happening? And for her to describe this as a nightmare is, I think, kind of funny, that this like domestic bliss is not something that Diana could ever deal with. Like, you want me to make you a sandwich? Hell no. So I thought that would be kind of funny. I like fish out of water stories, particularly with Diana, because unlike someone like Clark, who has this very human upbringing, I don't think Diana has that. So being such a stoic character, I like finding ways to kind of push that and make that personality really come out with her.
Yeah, and the sandwich thing is stuck out because of she cuts her finger in the blood. Man, it's such a interesting use, especially when you compare it to Clark, because Clark has that kind of upbringing and background. I did want to ask about your nuclear family, because I was reading a bit about it before this. It's an adaptation of a Philip K. Dick story, Breakfast at Twilight. What's it like to adapt a story into a comic book format?
Especially with Philip K. Dick, I mean, I think it's maybe not the easiest thing. And one of the challenges for this is the story Breakfast at Twilight is only like, I think it's a 5-page short story. So the information that Philip K. Dick gives readers really stops at like maybe halfway through our issue number 1. And then it's just like kind of our version of how we would expand on the premise set by Philip K. Dick. So in some ways, that's really cool, because you're really just expanding on this kind of cool writing topic from Philip K. Dick. But then it's also kind of daunting, because it's like you have all this open space to play with of like, where would this story go if it continued? Like, how much do you want to keep thinking like Philip K. Dick? How much do you want to just really change things and go in a direction nobody would expect? So I think in the end, we kind of came up with a happy blend between those two things that feels very Philip K. Dick, Twilight Zone-esque, while still putting something on it that I think like myself and Tony Shasteen, the artist, are just really excited about doing something kind of unexpected for readers too.
And that being a short story, you're fleshing out these characters as well. How did you try to balance the Philip K. Dick voice and your own voices when writing that?
I mean, I think the interesting thing is Tony, the artist on the series, he's a father. I don't have children, but kind of leaning on that with Tony sometimes and getting to ask him about portrayals of the characters, because we do have this family that's kind of being sucked into an alternate version of the 1960s after they experience a nuclear attack in the 50s. So it's almost like they're going somewhat forward in time, but for us, it's still the past. It's just an alternate version of the past, if that makes sense, in a very twisted Twilight Zone kind of way. So getting to lean on someone like Tony and, ask these questions about this family dynamic, or, to watch him create that on the page is also really cool. Just the way he draws, I think sometimes quiet moments, like looks between the daughter and the father as like things are going crazy around them. I think those are really key moments to the characters. And it doesn't come through in the dialogue so much as like Tony knows the way that a kid would look at their parent when they're in like a terrible situation. And he just nailed it. It's awesome. So I'm really happy to have, a collaborator on the project that can bring so much of that characterization to the family that we're writing about.
I'm super pumped for that. That sounds awesome.
Oh, thanks.
So before we get into Harley Quinn questions, I hope you saw this one coming, how excited I was. You're the first writer I've gotten to talk to, I think, other than Tim Seeley, who's gotten to write Professor Pig, who is, other than Mr. Freeze, is my favorite Batman anything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Did you choose to include him?
I did, yes. So I can't remember. I feel like there were maybe some characters I was told not to use just because they were being used in other Future State books, and we were trying to keep things a little bit separate since it's all happening at once and didn't want them to clash. And so I think I threw out maybe a couple of options like Pig and Firefly, and they liked both of those. And I was like, that's great. And then, obviously one of the best parts about this is letting Simone De Mayo like design these characters for a futuristic Gotham. And I mean, my favorite element of Pig in there is like, if you look at some of the panels with Pig, the mask is like partially made up of a gas mask, and that's what constitutes like the pig snout. It's such a cool design and a really cool twist on the character's costume. So I was really excited about that.
Yeah, the gas. So another one of my favorite DCs is Sandman, Wesley Dodds. So the gas mask is like something I'm kind of obsessed with in fiction. And then seeing Professor Pig in it, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna buy every issue of this book no matter what. Yeah, I'm just very excited to see Professor Pig. So it's interesting to see that you got to choose him. All right.
Yeah, I did.
So now, I got a good one. Now it's time to get on to some Harley freaking questions.
That's perfect.
Yeah, listen, this is why I'm the best podcaster. It's just simple. All right. So this being the second part of the episode, I'm going to repeat our first question, but in a different way. Mm-hmm. Harley is not only known for her heart of gold, but also her stomach of steel. If you had to choose between the two, would she rather have hot dogs or egg sandwiches?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like egg sandwiches are the easy choice just because Birds of Prey established this like breakfast sandwich fixation. We are playing with some culinary things in Harley Quinn Ongoing with Riley, and we had this whole conversation about like, to the point where we were like, how would Harley take her coffee? Like all of these little things. And I'm definitely going like sugar nut here, like millions of pumps of vanilla, as much whipped cream as possible, to go along with her egg breakfast sandwich. So yeah, that's probably what I would pick.
Interesting. I love seeing writers flesh out characters in ways like that, like a much deeper kind of aspect of the character. But what is your favorite aspect of Harley Quinn?
My favorite aspect is I think that her intelligence is downplayed, and I think that that's been done intentionally, and that's something that I want to keep doing, but also showcase how that intelligence can be a weapon. So I think, in the Gotham universe, we have a lot of weight given to how smart Batman is. He's such a good detective, but there's different types of intelligence. And though Harley isn't solving a crime in the same way that Batman is, I want her intelligence to be just as deadly, and getting to write somebody who is equal parts funny and intelligent in this way, while also just making her, a kick butt fighter, is a super cool combination, and one that I can't wait for readers to see how Riley has been drawing.
I do have to follow up on that one a little bit, because the intelligence is a weapon. Not to give too many spoilers away for future state, but Harley is kind of in a Hannibal Lecter type position. What made you follow that route rather than following her out and about in her normal way?
So some of it was, a little established by the publisher already, which is like, here's where Harley is, build the story from there. So some things were a little dictated by that. And then really what I wanted to do by putting her in between two characters like Roman Sionis and Jonathan Crane was to really say, or really kind of look at what it means to be a good guy or a bad guy, because both Crane and Sionis think that they are the good guys kind of in their own narrative. Crane thinks that he's helping the magistrate clean up Gotham and that he's seen the error of his ways. The old argument of masks just perpetuate more masks, so let's give them all up. Let's change the entire dynamic of Gotham, and he thinks he's in the right. And Roman Sionis is fighting against this and obviously thinks he's in the right. And Harley is kind of like, I don't really care about either of your hero dynamics. You're both idiots. So kind of getting to pit her between these two kind of self-righteous characters was a lot of fun to watch her just kind of outsmart two people that definitely think they are smarter than her, that they are correct, that they're the heroes. And Harley is not interested in this narrative that they are creating for themselves. And this becomes very much about her getting free and getting back to what she was doing in Gotham.
I mean, that brings up a pretty excellent point, of that Harley isn't really on either side of those dynamics. Her morality is a little bit more complicated. She can kind of switch from being quirky and a goofball to then bashing your brains in with a baseball bat.
Right. When
writing her, how do you kind of balance those different versions of her in herself?
I think they are all happening simultaneously. One of the things that I said with the creative team when we were first working is sometimes the funniest people are also the saddest. So I think that makes Harley someone who's really dynamic. She does have a past. She's done bad things. And I think all of these things are happening at the same time. And yes, humor can often be used as a cover up for some of those emotions. But I think beyond that, Harley is just very funny. She is witty. And to take it another step further, I think sometimes she uses the humor to parse out and understand her opponent on a deeper level. So getting to figure out how to push Jonathan Crane's buttons, or, some of the characters that we'll deal with in the ongoing, she's kind of using this as a way to like size them up. But because it's humorous, I don't think they see it coming, which makes Harley such a deadly character to kind of contend with.
Yeah. And something major about Harley is that her costume has changed multiple times since her inception on Batman the Animated Series. Are you and Riley going to be exploring that and doing different costumes, or sticking with sort of a dynamic?
So we did redo her costume for the ongoing series coming out in March. She's got a little bit more of a I don't even know what the word is. I don't think it's a jumpsuit. I don't really know what the right word is. Like the one piece, we really wanted to go back to pants as kind of a homage to the Paul Dini look, and bring those back, which I love. And then keep things with it's got like a cinched waist and a belt almost like a utility belt at the waist, which was a little bit modern. And then also kind of like a play on her having a new dynamic with Batman following Joker War, where they are finally like not chasing one another. They might be, I think, having the best relationship that they've had in Gotham for quite some time. So we kind of added that element as like a play on that relationship and dynamic, which has changed a bit. So we've definitely played with it. I mean, I like the fact that her look changes so much, and I think more than other characters, because I think it's a little bit more realistic. Like nobody has, I guess Batman probably does have hundreds of bat suits, but I think the average person just has like a closet full of lots of different items. So, we definitely have given Harley a lot of different ways to accessorize this kind of jumpsuit type thing that she's wearing.
Oh, accessories.
Yeah, I love accessories.
Makes me so upset that you mentioned the dynamic between her and Batman, because the series isn't out, so we can't talk about it. That's something I'm super excited for, is the whole Batline kind of entering this new age. Mm-hmm. What is it like working in Gotham? Is Tynan like the head of it, and then everyone collaborates? How does that work? If you don't mind me asking. That's a
great question. We definitely do all work together, which is, I think, a really unique facet of what's happening in Gotham moving forward in 2021. So, we all communicate, the editors all communicate, we get on Zoom calls together, like 15 people on a Zoom call to kind of flesh out, here's what's happening in Catwoman and how that ties into this book. And here's how Harley will tie into other things, and just, knowing what's going on with everyone else and kind of planning out Gotham as a whole. So obviously we have individual stories going on in Gotham, but they're all happening at the same time. These characters can all interact. And I think that's what makes the entire Gotham line really exciting moving forward.
Yeah, I'm so pumped. A lot of Harley fans fell pretty hard for Jimmy and Amanda Palmer. Jimmy and Amanda Connors. All of them just mixed together. Yep. Jimmy and Amanda's characterization of Harley, and not only that, but the world they built. Mm-hmm. Were any of the fans of the Coney Island sort of era see any Easter eggs coming up or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. That's something we definitely wanted to keep in mind while both designing the character, designing her new life in Gotham. Like, none of that is forgotten. That's all important key steps to the Harley that we're building today. Like, I see it as, we kind of have Joker era Harley, then her going to Coney Island as just a way to really kind of find herself post Joker. Mm-hmm. Also the Suicide Squad era, I kind of see that wrapped in there. And now we have this more self-actualized Harley moving back to Gotham. We've been through the storylines of, what do I do without Joker? This is not that storyline. We've had that. Now this is, okay, she's without Joker. Here's just Harley, which I think is a really cool, unique step for the character that we have not yet seen. And it's kind of the next natural progression as somebody that's been getting over what happened with the Joker, and now she's contending with what's happening in Gotham. And what is her mission going to? That mission is no longer get Joker out of my life, because that's already happened. So now it's kind of Suicide Squad wiped her records clean. What is her life going to look like? And I think that's really fun, because we get to design so much stuff. We get to design an apartment. We get to kind of restructure her life in a Gotham that has changed a lot in her absence. So her kind of relearning the city after coming back from Coney Island. But of course, we're not forgetting that. And, I'm a huge fan of what Jimmy and Amanda did with the character. So getting to kind of reread a lot of their run and find cool elements to bring back and build into our story as well.
I love all of that, because in my personal opinion, it feels like Harley's one of the comic book characters who's grown the most. Like she found herself. Like she went through this huge change in their run she's gone through all this self-discovery. So your run kind of is like the first, she found herself and now she's living her own life.
Right.
And this takes place after the most recent Suicide Squad run, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Just that ending was a lot. So while researching did you stumble on any sort of Harley stories that you think fly under the radar? Like, what's your you don't have to say your favorite, but like, what is one of the ones you want to pull the most from, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think we pull from a few different things. I like I said, I'm a big fan of Jimmy and Amanda's portrayal of the character, and I think that's what I've read the most of. I went back and I've read everything, Paul Dini has done with the character. And there's some really good shorts that I just love, like this playful element that's been there since the beginning that you can see how other writers took up. And I think it's something that we're really particular about not losing that. Like the short story where Ivy and Harley go on like the shopping spree with Batman after like dosing him with like a toxin. And it's just those kinds of ridiculous, funny situations that like we still want those ridiculous and fun situations with the character. Her plate is just a little bit fuller at the moment. Like she now has a city that has been destroyed by the Joker War. She is trying to get a new apartment. Like there's all these other things that I feel like are slightly more adult. And maybe that's part of what you're saying about like the character maturing a bit, which is like, I remember the first time that I had to really deal with where's my money coming from to pay for rent. Like we have a Harley Quinn in Gotham City without an income. So like these are all important questions that like we have to ask and figure out. And until this moment, I don't think Harley has had to figure them out either. And I think that makes her really interesting.
That is I'm excited for this book. I've told you before, but that is such an interesting take on the character and kind of the superhero, the Cape book itself. Like, how do they pay their rent? Like, unless you're like Batman who just prints money, but like, that's such an interesting element to explore. So I'm super excited for that. And she'll be hanging out with Batman every once in a while, right?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Is she going to hang out with Poison Ivy at all, or?
So like, we don't want to say too much what's going on. I mean, I know fans are very invested in the answer to this. And like, I mean, of course, I love Harley and Ivy together. Is this Harley Quinn's story? Yes. Does Ivy have a part in Gotham? Yes. So I think that's all I can really say about that.
I honestly, that's not even on my sheet of questions. I was like, I probably should ask the loaded gun one, shouldn't I? Wow. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm like trying to find words because now I'm so excited. So our grand finale, the big ending question. If you had to build a Rube Goldberg machine, what would it do?
Brush my teeth. I have been for a long time saying that like we have LASIK for eyeballs to like see better. Why don't we have LASIK for permanently brushed teeth? Which, again, somebody out there would be like, here's the 50 million reasons why not. I understand that it's not practical, but also, like, there is this weird sense I was a kid that's just like, what, I have to do this like all day, every day. And my mom would be like, it's literally like 2 or 3 times. It's not that big a deal. But yes, that's what I would build the machine to do.
I mean, you could probably, those like little vampire teeth you get around Halloween?
Yeah.
You could probably just super glue them in there, I think.
I mean, the other option is probably just like have all my teeth removed and just have, well, I guess you probably have to clean false teeth too.
You can get them made out of like gold or something. It'd be cool though.
Perfect.
With your Harley Quinn money. There you go.
Love it. Yes. That's sweet, sweet comic money.
Comics is well known for that. Just
absolutely.
Boatloads, hand over foot. It's wild.
Yes.
So, when can people find your ongoing Harley Quinn?
The first issue comes out at the end of March, and then Future State is out now. And actually, they just released right before we got on the podcast that Future State #1 is going back to print with a Dan Mora character cover. So there will be another amazing Harley Quinn cover in the mix.
That Dan Mora.
Yep.
I gotta say though, Riley is like one of my favorite artists right now. A friend of mine actually turned me on to Riley, but like, such unique style, and it's all so beautiful.
I feel like it's so dynamic that it's perfect for a character like Harley, where we get to kind of just turn Riley loose on, like, writing fight scenes with Riley is so much fun. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that is something I thought about for a long time, since finding Riley. Where he did one of the black, white, and reds, and I have someone made a button of the cover, and it's on my fridge.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's been one of those things where it's like, can this just happen? And you know what? DC made it happen. So I'm very excited.
That's very cool.
What other projects do you have that people should be picking up?
That is a good question. Well, we talked a little bit about Sensational Wonder Woman. So that's good. I guess, one thing I forgot to mention is when you asked about Ivy, we do have a story out in March that kind of answers the question for people asking where Ivy is in the Batman Urban Legends anthology that comes out at the beginning of March. We have a Harley Quinn Poison Ivy story that kind of goes over what their relationship is going to be like moving forward in the ongoing. So it's almost like supplemental reading material a little bit. It's going to be drawn by Lauren Braga, and it is kind of like Harley moving into Gotham, almost like a precursor. And then issue number 1 of the ongoing starts, I think, a week or 2 later.
And you're writing that story as well?
Yes.
Everywhere. It's just you. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's nice getting, having DC really own that. Say, like, you're going to write Harley, and then just really get the chance to make that my own. And I think, I hope and feel like, I'm giving a lot stronger material on something like Harley because I have that opportunity. Before going into the ongoing, I got to write 2 Harley Quinns in Future State. And really like test out the voice and tone and figure out, all right, here's now what I want the ongoing to feel like I've got this now. So the learning curve, I feel like, was a little different because I had that practice.
Yeah, from your first issue, I love your voice for Harley. I think it's incredible, and I clearly, if you couldn't hear how many times I had to rethink what I wanted to say, I'm very excited.
Well, thank you.
You can catch us at gatecrashers.fan. on Twitter at gatecrasherspod. I probably should know those by heart by now, but it's been a week. Catch us next time.
Gatecrashers.